Your fortune is clear. You are watching the Roll for Crit podcast, the official podcast for rollforcrit.com. Watch, shop, play. I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and as it is Halloween, you may in fact be watching this very episode on Halloween. We are, of course, decked out in our special board game themed Halloween costumes. What have you got going on over there?
This is Viral with my backup t-shirt because I had a much better one which actually showed organs, but it disappeared.
Viral, the board game, for anyone who doesn't know. you're a body with viruses.
Yes, including a little pink headband from a brain.
It's perfect because you already are a body. So the rest just came naturally.
I'm still checking on that one.
Maybe
what are you? I believe you're actually a trend.
I am the planet Mars, which you may remember from games such as First Martians, Mission Red Planet, Terraforming Mars, Mars 445, and many others that exist and are probably still to come. I'm going to try very hard not to move at all during this episode, so this doesn't make noise. That was okay, I got it. But if it becomes too annoying, Mars may just become unvisible, which is a word, unvisible. Anyway, it is Halloween. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their Halloweek. So it's our last chance to celebrate those good times. And we have some really interesting things to talk about on today's show. Some good viewer comments, some good Halloween stuff to talk about later in the episode. First up, we have one giant news story.
Yes. If you watch our show a lot, and in fact, if you've just been in board games, you probably recognize some Fantasy Flight games. And there are a lot. And if you watch us, we have brought up, I believe, some games. For example, Arkham Horror, we said it's almost like a video game in board game format.
In terms of how many moving parts there are in it.
So Fantasy Flight has apparently listened and said, you know what? Let's go there.
Yeah, they announced Fantasy Flight Interactive, a brand new department that is going to focus on translating their board game properties into video games. And from what they have said, they're not talking about just digital board games.
Yes, because as we know, we've actually had conversations with Asmodee's department, which Fantasy Flight is under, their app division.
Right.
So this seems to be not just a simple, here's a digital version of that game.
Yeah, Asmodee Digital is going to continue to handle their apps of board games. This department is strictly for actual, we presume, they're still a little vague in their wording, but it sounds like your traditional, actual kind of video games. They have a guy, his name is Tim Gerritsen, who's heading up the department. He has worked previously with companies like Irrational Games, who did the BioShock series, as well as, I believe it's called Human Head Studios, that did the original Prey game, not the new one, the one with the Native American alien stuff going on. So pretty good pedigree. He's not a designer, but I think he's more in the marketing, overseeing department of video games.
I wouldn't be surprised if, you probably hired those people first, unless you try to get one of those big name.
I assume that once they've announced this, they have everybody in check. Right. I'm just saying this is the guy who's running it or overseeing it for them. So they've got somebody who knows what they're doing, presumably. And as you said, Fantasy Flight has a lot of properties. Of course, a lot of their biggest games are existing licenses.
True, but they do hold, I'm going to say 3. This third one is sort of new, but 3 big universes, which I'm pretty sure we would be just fine diving into.
Well, let's talk about it. What board games that they have do you want to see as a video game, and what do you think they should do with it?
Well, I'm going to actually go with the universe, because they sort of have the universe that board games fall under. The first one's Netrunner.
Whatever makes you happy. Yeah,
well,
Android Netrunner.
Netrunner.
Yeah, well, technically it's Android.
Right, the world of Android universe.
Yeah, gotcha. Go on.
So, that we've talked about has always had this cool story. I haven't tried, but I really want to try the whole actual campaign Android Netrunner
that they recently introduced.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, it's cyberpunk. I think you can easily make a fun, interesting thing. There's a lot of lore in there.
Would you want an action game, like a shooter, I guess would make sense?
Well, that one's interesting.
An
RPG?
Because
with Netrunner, if you played Android Netrunner, the 2 sides of sport, both the corporations and the actual players.
The runners, yeah.
So I could see maybe a game, one where you play as the corporation side, and maybe that's more like a resource management kind of, I guess, sim-like, like SimCity kind of like thing, where you have to send people. It's not really action one player. You're the company itself. When if you're the hacker, maybe it's more of a hide and seek puzzle, almost. I almost want to say horror horror-esque like. It's not really horror in the dark lights and everything's crazy, but it's like you're trying to avoid the cops or the security forces.
Okay.
So I think that could be really cool.
Maybe they combine. Maybe they do the same thing the LCG does and make it asymmetrical, where it's online and one player has a completely different sort of goal while the hackers are trying to do something.
I'll also say this. I am, in terms of video games, very biased and really hopeful for more single player than multiplayer games. Or very least, if it's multiplayer, it's cooperative.
Huh.
Don't need...
I wonder how much of because, I mean, I don't know what direction they are going to go. They might go in different directions for different games.
I mean, yeah, obviously,
But considering that, they want to translate the feeling of these board games, and so many of them are competitive, I wonder if they will bring a lot of that, if that will be a focus for them.
No, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm saying...
No, I understand. I'm not disagreeing with your opinion.
And I probably horrible...
I'm just saying.
I just hit the mic there, so that's probably... but let's go on to another one. Obviously,
what
there's
else?
a lot you could do with Netrunner. Like you said, combine the two or two separate games. The Arkham Horror Chronicle. I think it's called Arkham Chronicles is the actual universe.
Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror.
Cthulhu, I don't think... I mean, the last real decent game was called Cthulhu, I believe. I think the Eldritch creatures could really use a good video game. Obviously, this should be a horror. You should not feel like, even though you can technically in the Arkham Horror games, take a shotgun and shoot Cthulhu and actually beat him. I think it really should rely more on the horror aspect. And I mean, there's just so much Lovecraft has to give that I think video games haven't. I mean, some have pulled here and there, but I mean, the full on.
It's interesting because Cthulhu is such a force in board games, but in video games there's almost nothing comparatively.
Well, I think one of the issues with that is there's actually this is an old video, but Extra Credit, another YouTube, did a whole thing of why video games have handled Cthulhu poorly, and the reason is people want the power fantasy. And I don't think Lovecraft's about power fantasy.
That's an interesting theory, but there's plenty of survival horror
No,
games.
there are. And the problem is, though, every time Cthulhu's popped up, usually it's been in a power fantasy game. That's why. And I think they have the resources to make it a survival horror.
I don't know why or not, but yeah, I definitely think it should be one. There's also, Arkham has a great kind of detective noir angle attached to it.
Well,
and they could do something cool with like a puzzle solving, mystery solving.
I mean, with the rise, I feel like recently at least, I've seen popular, or at least AAA games of more detective nature. This one's a little far back, but obviously the big example's Rain.
Rain?
Heavy Rain, wow.
Oh.
Heavy Rain. Sorry, I forgot a word.
I was like, am I a bad video game player?
You're always the better one. But I know there are a couple others that are have been advertised recently in E3 and stuff. So I think that's definitely one of the fun ways they can go.
All right, so you said 3. What's the third?
Well, the third one is, it's just new, and I just realized all 3 I've picked are LCGs.
At this point, yes.
Legend of the Five Rings.
Because at some point, all of Fantasy Flight's properties will be LCGs.
To me, it's the LCGs, because of the way they work, they sort of expand a universe. So because of this, like Netrunner being their oldest one, I think it is one of their oldest ones, there's so much lore and story in the cards that they've made. And so that's why the other one, it's not as big in terms of what they've done, but I know Legends of Five Rings stretches much farther back. But these sort of properties could be really cool to bring in and do also different games. And I do also hope that they do spread to all systems, not just only PC, only mobile.
What they have said is Steam. That's in their first announcement. They said they're going to be putting games out through Steam. And
it's mostly
made no other announcements.
I hope it's not just mobile.
I don't. Yeah. They didn't say anything about mobile. So at the very least, they're going to have Steam at their forefront. It's interesting that 2 of the 3 you named are not really, or are also not original. They're like, Lovecraft and Legend of the Five Rings they took from other things. There's a couple other ones, though, that I think would be interesting. Another non-original one would be Letters from Whitechapel. They could do a cool mystery horror game with Jack the Ripper stuff.
Wait a minute, I got it.
Yeah.
Civilization.
That's cute. I think one of their few very original properties, Cosmic Encounter. I mean, I don't know what the game would be like, but it's
there's definitely possibilities.
Setting that I feel like there's something they could do there.
And also, I think if you were to make your own list, we're probably going to choose things that we play more and liked.
Yeah, honestly, I think we named almost all of them. Actually, I did a cursory look at Fantasy Flight's, properties, and almost so many of them now they focus on are Game of Thrones, Star Wars, the pre-existing properties, and even like the ones we mentioned are based on things. They also had like Winter Tales, which is also just based on Alice in Wonderland and other fairy tales. But I think we hit like the major ones that most people would think of. I'm very curious to see what they do, and I'm very curious to see how successful it is, and if any other studios follow suit. Because even within Asmodee, I could think of other companies like Plaid Hats Games, for instance, that I feel like are even better original properties that would lend themselves to cool games.
Well,
I don't know,
if you were to choose one property, let's not even limit the Fantasy Flight.
Yeah.
As a game, what would it be?
Oh man, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, since I just said Plaid Hat, I could say like Mice and Mystics. I think would be a lot of the the story focused ones are where my mind would go. But that's something I could definitely sit down and think about. I mean, I know Arkham Horror is definitely a good one. We've talked about a lot that would make a great board game. Also,
Video game, you mean?
Video game. Sorry.
It'd make a great board game.
It'd make it okay board game. Also, because so many of the games that I like are based on TV shows and stuff. So then I get confused with like, oh, that's based on 4 other things. But there's a million. I really want to know how this is going to go, because I want to know how full scale are they going to get with this?
No, I definitely see, because honestly, my list, Netrunner, Arkham Horror, if I include everything, actually probably would be. Though to be fair,
They're up there.
Arkham Horror is just literally, I want a good Cthulhu game. So,
right.
But I do think that Netrunner Cyberpunk could be really cool. The only other big one I can think of outside would be Magic the Gathering, in terms of one that's not just a Hearthstone ripoff.
What about like an MMO for any of these properties?
No, that definitely is a possibility.
That would be pretty cool.
I mean, we're starting to see it. I guess Netrunner would be the most likely candidate for this, but I think they're called looter shooters. Destiny, Borderlands. That's also a possibility.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a great potential. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, we don't know anything about when we're going to see anything yet. Could be years, because I have no idea how long they've been working on this.
Right.
Games take a long time to develop.
We'd definitely love to hear what you think would make good Fantasy Flight video games.
Yeah.
Or wouldn't.
Let us know in the comments, please, and we'd love to read those on our show another time.
Maybe they'll pick up that Star Wars game that EA just dropped.
Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe they'll somehow get.
But it'll still be a miniatures game.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's because it's going to be Toys to Life.
Right.
It's going to have little.
That's where they're gonna go.
Yeah, that could be what they do. I just realized when we cut these up into clips, people will be really confused about what we're wearing. But that's okay. They can figure it out from the date of the video. All right, so we got just a couple Kickstarters that I thought were cool that I'm going to mention to you for this week. The first one is called Root. Speaking of games sort of like Mice and Mystics, this one has a similar aesthetic, a similar theme at least, kind of reminiscent of Redwall, those types of stories.
Cute furry animals dressed as warriors.
Exactly. They're not just dressed like warriors, though they are warriors.
Sorry.
Yes, please, get it straight. So this is a game from the people who made Vast, which we never played, but supposedly it shares some similar DNA in that you can choose one of these 5 groups. I believe it's 5, 4, or 5, and they all have asymmetrical gameplay choices. The game essentially is sort of an area control, territory control combat game, but everyone has a different victory condition. You're all trying to get 40 points, but how you get points is different. So
one might get for defeating all enemies when one's like gathering enough gold, or
right, one wants to control a certain number of territories. There's even one interesting character called the Vagabond who they want to help other players or hurt them. So they might get points for giving someone cards, and they might also get points for like making an enemy of someone. So they are all about just interacting with people. So they're a really weird monkey wrench in the works. So interesting looking design. People have said great things about Vast and this game, and the art is really adorable.
Oh, I mean, just look at it now.
It's cute as pie. I guess that's a thing people might say. That game goes for $60, so it is, despite its adorable looks, it's I think it's going to be a meaty game. The other one that I liked is called Pigment, and it's an art game where you are collecting paint colors.
Okay.
And it's basically worker placement, but every round there's going to be a new option from 5 cards laid out that you're going to be placing to choose your actions for. Sort of like how Harbor works. You have multiple cards and you place your guy there, and you can't place your guy somewhere someone else already did, like any worker placement game. And most of the cards are going to be take this number of paint. Some of them actually have 2 options on them, so you can decide one or the other. And there's going to be 3 paintings set up on the side that require, it might say, this needs 5 blue cubes and 3 red to paint this. And once you have enough, you cash it in. So it's sort of like Splendor in that way. And once you take that painting, it's actually going to have a special ability. So as you go through the game, you're strategizing which paintings will help me the most to win the most points.
I couldn't help when you first told me it's all about collecting Pigment. Is actually a show I watch where it's about actually forgers. Yeah. It'd be like, in order to fake the date of a painting, they'd be like, just escape a little red paint off this and stuff. And
you could theme it that way if you want to. I mean, you are painting paintings that already exist. So it just looked cute. We like the art theme in games. They're usually pretty fun. That one goes for only $17. So if you like painting, maybe this game will help you on your path. A little paint by numbers type of game. We have some really good viewer comments though this week. So that's what we're going to focus on next before we get into what we have been playing. Last week we talked about the new partnership between WizKids and Games Workshop.
Yep.
Dave Dog, our friend, is very pessimistic. He says, I love Games Workshop, I love Fantasy Flight games, and I love WizKids, but this joint partnership will end in tears for them and for the consumer also. Look what happened to Warhammer Adventure Quest, the card game. I rest my case. I guess, the Warhammer Adventure game... Really,
it came out like right as soon as the partnership...
It came out and it really didn't get any support. I think there was like 1 small expansion for it.
2, I think.
1, maybe 2.
I think there's like the Witch Hunter and something else.
But it really didn't go anywhere too far, so I guess that's what he's saying, that he thinks it's just going to come out and... Maybe people don't want Warhammer board games. Maybe people, but Forbidden Stars is one that did really well. That was through Fantasy Flight.
That's Warhammer 4000 though.
That's true, but I'm pretty sure it's all collected. I think in terms of the deal they have, in terms of games that might come out. But yeah, it's 2 different universes. Maybe people don't want original Warhammer games.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't know. We'll find out. Let us know if you agree or disagree with that. We also talked about the 2nd edition of Eclipse. Jeff Bonds on Board Game Geek had some really interesting suggestions that I liked for how they might change this 2nd edition of the game. One, he said, change the combat system. Talking's hard. The game devolves into a roll fest near the end. This would mean changes to technology and upgrades, but goes hand in hand with updated dice, which they said are being included. He also said the 7 through 9 player rules have a variant for simultaneous turns, and making that official would help speed up the game. Simultaneous turns could be a good thing. Another thing would be to change some of the symbols to make it easier for new players to determine what they all mean. And he says, most important, an inlaid player board. I have jostled the table countless times, shaking my economy to pieces. Something like Scythe's 2-layer inset player boards would be a huge help.
Yes. We've done this totally accidentally.
Whoops, I guess we'll never know who won.
Hold on, I think I remember I was at this high money and...
Yeah, I think those are great suggestions, especially that last one I think is a no-brainer. If they don't do that, it's a real missed opportunity, because that is one of our favorite things about Scythe. It's so great. We were just talking about how one of our friends said someone compared Scythe to Eclipse, and we were kind of like, I guess, sort of, but... Not really? I don't know.
It was interesting mostly because your opinion, like, I love Scythe, and then like, don't ever bring clips to my table.
Yeah, I'm definitely a much bigger fan of Scythe, so I don't know if people think they're similar or not, let us know. But I thought those were all good suggestions. If you're listening, makers of Eclipse, I hope that you take some of those to heart. And they are listening. We know they are listening. We also talked about, you had some hot tips. For the 7th continent. Some other of our friends chimed in with their own hot tips on Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
I'm going to read them right now. Curtis Cox says, use your items and blue card hands when you have them. Don't save them for a rainy day.
That's true. That's definitely, I guess that's just one of the things, like, I don't know if, like, for me, it's just like in video games in general, you know how you'll sometimes just hoard something like, I don't need to use this healing item now.
Yeah, no, you don't need to defend your leaving out hot tips. More hot tips for everybody. Keep some space in your inventory if you can, because you might stumble on an item unexpectedly.
Oh yeah, I forgot that happened to me.
That's always good. And this one, I haven't experienced because I've been playing it solo. Remember that you can cooperate on any action, including walking and crafting, to reduce the costs. A good thing to know. Another person, Aaron Bredon, said, consider when it makes sense to fail an action. If it takes too much energy to pass and the negative isn't too bad, you might want to just fail it.
That is true. There are always some things that's just like, okay, I'll just...
Yeah, sometimes you just got to cut your losses and quit while you're not too far behind.
No, definitely the cooperative one is one, like we were both playing it, I played it solo and you're playing it solo now. And that definitely is one because one of the things you can do is, I don't know if you've noticed this, but you can, your movement, you draw one less card, moving into a space with another person or a campfire.
Yes, I definitely knew that once I made a fire, and I was very happy about it.
So like, if you're single player, or solo, one of the things is like, okay, this is a great campfire spot. Because, crossing
right.
around.
You want to wait until you find like a good central area you're going to be going through a lot, maybe. Yeah.
And if you can line up your group, like, okay, if I go one, then you go, like leapfrog it, so to speak. Right,
exactly, yeah. But I'm all alone, so I don't have that experience. But I've been loving the game. I'm very excited to continue my journey. It's been a lot of fun. And then finally, it is still Halloween. You have a day or maybe a day and a half if you want some last-minute game ideas for your Halloween party. Most people probably already had them, but maybe you're having a Tuesday night party. I don't know. Falcon Ash K says games for him would be Zombies with 3 exclamation points, District Z, Betrayal at House on the Hill, Escape Zombie City, and Smash Up, which, of course, maybe you don't think of as being Halloween themed, but I was Smash Up last year.
I don't know. I think, what was it, King of the Games?
I was Lord of the Games.
Lord of the Games.
Yeah, approves of Smash Up, all those different costumes that you can get. So that is good. And we, in fact, had our little Halloween party, and in particular, we put up a video of a Halloween game that we played, and we just put up the playthrough of it, so this is going to be our discussion of our actual impressions of the game. It's 10 Candles, the RPG where you have 10 candles, and every round, when someone fails a challenge, you blow one out, and once the candles are all dark, everyone's dead. And that's it. It's a horror game where everybody dies.
Spoilers. That's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, unless you tweak the rules, which you could do if you really wanted to.
Or unless you have godly rolls somehow.
Yeah, and your game continues forever. But we do have this video on our channel. It's our Halloween video this year. I recommend you go watch it. It's 2 hours long, but it's a fun RPG. So if you want to get a sense of what we're really talking about right now, that will help you out. But generally, we'll talk about our impressions of the game. I was the GM, but this is an interesting kind of game because as opposed to other RPGs, I feel like even though I was the GM, our experiences are pretty similar because there's no prep for the GM.
Yeah, and honestly, we're writing as much of the story as you are, so to speak, depending on dice rolls.
If not more. I mean, the players share equal storytelling rights, really. So it's very interesting in that way. I also think this makes a great beginner game for a new GM because of that. It's very easy to get into, and I feel like if we were to play again, you could easily GM if you wanted to, because
I'm that bad.
You basically know everything there is to know now. It's very easy for both sides. But I mean, I'll start as coming into it, not really knowing exactly how it would feel, but knowing that you guys were going to write most of the story. In case you haven't watched the video, the way it works is if a challenge is succeeded by the player and they rolled more 6s than I did, they get to tell the outcome of their roll. As the game goes on, it's more likely that I'm going to have more dice, I'm going to be rolling higher than them, so I'm more likely to get to narrate the outcome of their story. And at first I thought this is great.
And in addition, each round after a fail, you change a round. each person, depending on the number of candles, gets to add a fact, including you.
Right.
So that can also change the story.
Yes, you get to say a truth which progresses things in some meaningful way. And the sky's the limit. You know, it's not like you can say, I found a great item. You can say a monster appeared. Like, you can really do whatever you want.
They did the mash.
Exactly. Anything could happen. It's Halloween. Who knows? So I was thinking this is a great, because normally when I've DM'd for us before, it's, you know, it's, and you've done it for us too, it can be scary because you don't know what's going to happen. You have to improvise a lot. You prepare as much as you can, but at least I'm always a little nervous because I don't know if something's going to go wrong. I'm going to think of something that's not cool. So for this, it was, you know, as a DM, you just get to kind of hang out, and at least for the first half of the game, everybody else tells the story for you. What I did find as time went on, though, was the flip side of that is there were times where I was a little frustrated because if I did have a cool idea and the person succeeded on the roll, I would lose that opportunity to put that into the narrative.
Well, not only that, if they failed on a roll. I mean, we had one round that literally failed during the first roll, so you couldn't even do anything really.
That's gonna happen. Yeah, right. So you'll change scenes, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I kind of thought of a plan for this area, but you guys just moved on and left. Which in a normal RPG, of course, can happen, but you have more freedom to be like, to then go back and
or cause consequences for them leaving it.
Consequences, or even like, oh, they didn't go here, but you know what? The left path also led to there. You know what I mean? Like, you can kind of cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't do that as much in this game. So it was a very interesting storytelling experience. It really is a shared experience. There almost isn't a GM, even though there is. It's still a necessary component, but it's very different.
There are some things compared to other RPGs which I think you need to know with your group beforehand. One, because everyone's dying, everyone needs to know that their character is going to die. Don't get attached, and don't plan to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the superhero.
Yeah, I thought I was clear about this in our group. I'm pretty sure I was, but we did have one player who, at the end, was sort of like, "Wait, we're all gonna die? Can I not die?" You know, you're gonna die.
Well, the other thing is that, and if you forget to tell this, they'll get angry. The real fun not comes from trying to make sure your character wins because you know they're gonna die, but by telling a good story. So, for example, you and I made it so there's a point in the story where, in essence, we close off a path. I did it, then you did it right after. I'm like, oh, okay, he's really making sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
And the person got very angry at that.
Right. You have to be willing to hurt yourself in this game. It really is a game of telling a good story because you can't win. So the only thing you can do is tell a good story. And I do think by the end of our game, we did have kind of a cool, you basically are just writing a little horror movie, a little 2-hour horror movie.
And while this one probably doesn't seem too much to some people, I think it's always probably a good idea. As the story maker, who are sitting next to you actually matters. So if you have someone who is very creative, make sure they're sitting to your right.
Right.
Because they're the one who designed what do they call them?
The creatures, them or they that are involved.
And I think by making sure you have someone who's definitely in on the storytelling will give you something really cool and interesting. I actually think my monster was pretty cool. I gave you. It's just the problem is we weren't able to really use it to as well as we could have. I feel.
Yeah, it was one of the tough things.
It's still a good story, but
yeah, I liked it. Sometimes I was like, oh, they're taking too long, and then sometimes, oh wait, it's too rushed. Hold on. So yeah, it's hard to. You got to get a handle on those kinds of things. But I think overall it worked out pretty well for us. Another thing that I want to comment on is the fact that it's a horror game, and you know your story is going to be literally and figuratively dark. And for me, that was kind of a challenge because I'm used to doing our D&D campaign where it's usually very funny and lighthearted and goofy. I've never really personally attempted to scare anybody.
Well, I guess
and you kind of have that from the End of the World.
Yeah, RPG. Because the one I GM'd, it was my first time, so it was very, very rocky. But a good experience nonetheless. Everyone's got to start somewhere. It's supposed to be zombie horror, so I tried to make it horror. Unfortunately, the problem there was I really underestimated how much a bump in a stat made, which caused someone to just start guaranteeing kills and that.
Right.
So you guys weren't really swarmed, which is why like the next part I was going to be much more like darker for all of you and stuff. And I may have said that you were all going to lose like half of your skills.
You guys also had a bunch of guns in this scenario, but it didn't really help you that much. They didn't.
No, because I kept failing the rolls.
Yeah. So that's an interesting aspect of it for sure. If you're, it depends on your personality, and our game was pretty goofy. People were definitely telling and I think also towards the end it was kind of late and people were getting tired, which made them a little goofier.
I also think it's an issue. I don't know if this is the time for that conversation of there's certain characters you never want to see in an RPG. At least my experience. I'm sure people out there can tell me otherwise.
Yeah, that could be another discussion. But in general, I do think it kind of applies to this game just from... It is a game that I was anticipating, this is going to be dark and spooky, but it's hard when you're, at least for our group, I think, when you're with your friends, you're tempted to just joke around a lot. But I think we balanced it okay. I think there was maybe it was 50-50 dark and jokey, which is all right. And the fact that it's going to be dark with candles while you play does help.
Oh yeah, ambiance always helps for anything.
A lot, yeah.
And you could probably play some music if you weren't recording live.
Yeah, some spooky tunes would be helpful. It is a really fun game. I really enjoyed it. I think as a new GM or a new player. Very simple setup, and the fact that even if you're an experienced role-playing player, there's no setup. You can sit down and play it in one shot.
It's also a fun, different one shot, which is nice.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So you don't have to put all right, 2 hours building my character. All right, this is their family lineage, and
there's no session 0. You sit down, you hand out some cards, and you're like, let's go.
There technically is, but it's 5 minutes before the game.
Right.
That's it.
It's built in sort of to the setup. So 10 candles. If you check out our video, there's a link in the description where you can buy this game online. I'm sure they have it as a PDF or as the book. So if you're looking for something spooky-ooky to play, that's a good bet. We also played, this is a game we've talked about before you have.
Right, yeah, but you finally got a chance to play it, so we can sort of talk a little bit about your opinion of it.
Yeah, Blood-Borne, also spooky kind of game based on the video game. I don't remember, it was a while ago you talked about the game, so I'll probably repeat half the things you said, but you had called it a Cutthroat Caverns light, and which confused me because I thought Cutthroat Caverns is already pretty light, but yeah, there's less stuff going on in this game. You kind of know what cards are out, you really know what everybody has in their hand. If you have a good memory, you pretty much always can know what everybody has in their hand, even though you're getting new cards as the game goes on. And it also felt less hostile than Cutthroat Caverns, which is very backstabby.
Right, and the difference there is, like I said when you first told me after playing, is in Cutthroat Caverns, there's a lot more cards and abilities that are literally redirect all damage to this player, or do this, much more targeting to other people, really specific.
Yeah.
In this, that doesn't have that as much. There's maybe there's a few cards that deal 1 damage to each player.
Not as much, not nearly as much. Take that.
Yeah, it's more about planning out your attack based on where you are in turn order and stuff. So it's more about trying to predict your opponent's moves than trying to kill them before. And the other thing, there's outside of one major boss in Blood-Borne, there's no player elimination. Right,
no player elimination, which is big. I think another thing that actually changes it up is in Cutthroat Caverns, you have to kill most of those monsters to get by them. Whereas in this game, they'll leave no matter what. And I think that's different because in Cutthroat Caverns, there is an implied forced cooperation because of that. You do have to work together or you'll all die, but at some point you have to turn on each other. Whereas in Blood-Borne, I feel like it's understood from the beginning, we're never working together, we're always against each other, so there isn't a feeling of betrayal as much. And anyway, it's a fun, light game. The artwork is really cool.
I'm pretty sure it's just still from the game.
It probably is. Is it? No, some of it was definitely 2D, unless they have images of...
No idea, I haven't played Blood-Borne. So.
Yeah, but it looks really cool. I definitely feel like there's room for expansions in this game. I really hope they come out with even just new bosses, new monsters would be a great addition. But fun. Check out Blood-Borne, and maybe someday we'll play the video game so we can actually compare it, and we'll do that. Finally, we also played the new Jackbox Party Pack. We talked about Party Pack 3 before on this show. We've played the first 2 as well, and even though this is a digital game, we feel that these games kind of cross that line between video and board game in a lot of ways. These are games you play with everybody on their smartphone as their own device, so you kind of can have hidden information, things like that. This game has 5, I think it's 5 mini games within it.
Yes, it is.
One of them is a retread from an older title, the rest are all new. So we can kind of talk about which ones that we liked the most. We'll just run in order of what I can remember. First up is Fibbin 3.
Right.
If people don't know, this is a game where everyone has to try and guess what the true answer is for multiple choices, but everyone inputs their own, so you're trying to fool everyone else.
This one has a new twist that makes the questions all about the people who are playing, which actually I thought was a lot of fun. The exception of, I think we need to increase the timer for the last part is each person has to answer or put in a truth about them and a lie about them. And I don't know about you, but I had a very hard time coming up with stuff that was actually interesting.
Yeah.
That wasn't just, I had pizza today. I didn't have pizza today.
It can be a challenge to truly know yourself in that sense.
Or at the very least, things that you wouldn't actually want to bring up.
And I think everyone thought the twist of making them about your own self really livened up the game. I think most people would just rather play that version than the other version. I don't know about you, but it seemed like our group, at least, most people were loving
honestly,
it.
I like both. I thought both were a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely room for both, and most of the questions weren't too invasive, but you might if you're like uncomfortable. It wasn't anything embarrassing.
Well, also, I just feel like I probably would get tired more of the personal one quicker than the...
Yeah, that's true, especially if you're like playing with the same group and you're just tired of coming up with your own
answers. But that's also because I'm boring.
Yeah, if you're really interesting, if you're a group of celebrities, maybe you'll really like it. So that's definitely, for me, that's probably still, there's a reason they included that game again.
Yeah.
I think it's one of their best.
No, I will not argue with that at all.
The next one we tried was Halloween themed, and it was the monster dating game. I can't remember the real name of it, but it's something like that. Everybody has a secret monster role with a power, and you're allowed to send 4 messages to other monsters per night. There's 6 nights in the game. And it's literally on your phone, a chat app connected with the people you're playing with. So you're clicking on them and typing whatever you want. That's your message. So the gameplay is almost not a game. You're just talking to people, and at the end of the night, you choose who you want to date. And if you both agree to each other, you get points.
It also will show the chats, though, so be careful what you say.
Yeah, so we found that this game, as a game, I think it wasn't that great, but as a just tool for comedy, there was some funny stuff that happened.
There were some funny chats just to be like, you want this? $20. Okay.
Yeah.
Like just such stupid, silly conversations. But other than that, I really didn't enjoy this one.
I mean, that's fair. I did like it, and I do think that the monster powers, there's a lot to be said about knowing what they are going in. I think if you were aware of what the possible monster powers are and what they might be, there would be more strategy of who to date and why. Whereas our first go around going in blind, they didn't tell you anything. We were just kind of goofing around for no reason. It's definitely not the best of the bunch, but I thought the theme was cute. There's some fun to be had. What was another one? The next, there was the internet game.
Survive the internet.
Survive the internet, something like that. And this one it's basically a caption game where you write a response to a prompt that might be something that could be anything. Like, what do you think about pizza? You'd say, I love it. And then it gets sent to someone else.
But they only get the answer.
Right.
So like if you wrote that and then I get, I love it, and then it'll be like, write a title for a newspaper article, or this was the comment on it.
Right, so the newspaper will be, fire kills 20 people, and I'd say, I love it, and everyone would go, haha, that's stupid. And it could be different things. It could be a crowdfunding campaign, a YouTube video,
This one glitched out on us a little bit, which I think
Yeah,
did
we
remove, but I
had
did
a few
enjoy
glitches in this game, but yeah, go.
I did really enjoy this one a lot more. I thought there was a lot more really silly, hilarious things, some of which you can't say on YouTube.
Yeah, there's also a part where you do a caption of an image for someone. This was another one that also can play off of your actual players. If you know each other well, you can kind of work off of their personalities for it. A simple but effective caption type of game. Next, there were two left. The next one was bracketeering, and that is not a debate game. It's a tournament game. They ask a question. Their example they keep giving is awesomest grandma names. So everyone writes in what they think would be the awesomest grandma name, and then they go head to head, two at a time, and everybody votes, until you get to the final bracket of who's going to win. This one was also a really fun concept. Depending on how funny your choices are and what the question is, it can be funny or less funny.
Yeah, for me it was very hit or miss, so honestly I think this is my second least favorite game out of the pack.
I think it depends on your group. For instance, one of our questions was board game appropriate. What would be a good addition as a Monopoly Street? And almost everybody wrote what they actually thought would be a good addition, which I guess has some merit to it, but it wasn't funny, so it wasn't really interesting.
Well, for me, I know it didn't occur to me to make up a street.
Huh? You were just thinking if they asked a question, I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, so I was just like, oh, God, what's a street name?
So yeah, maybe there's still like bumps like that. That again, a bunch of these maybe the next time you play it, you kind of go along with that more. But the other thing that hurt the game for me was, depending on how many players you have, this actually goes up to 16 players, which I think is great. So this is good for a really large group. You're going to be seeing some of these same answers again and again. So a lot of the fun of these games is the surprise. As with any joke game, when you see that joke the second time, it's not as funny.
Right.
So that did hurt this one the longer it went on. But it was different. I liked the concept. So I liked that they tried on this one.
Yes. Finally, there was Civic Doodle.
Right, Civic
in which players will actually be doing drawings in different areas. They'll usually be like, it'll take two players, such as the two of us, and it'll give us a basic drawing to start off with. Maybe a circle will be there. We each draw and add on to it, and then everyone else will vote on which one they like more.
Right.
Then it'll take the winning drawing, give it to two other people, and then they add on to it, and so on and so forth.
Or more, depending on how many players you're playing with. And this was another one that's almost required no thought to make. I feel like it's a fun game, but it's just so like you could take a piece of paper and play this game right now. It's basically like the purest form of drawing game that Jackbox has had, I think, which is fine. It worked out.
I enjoy the drawing games. So.
Yeah, no, it was. I think this was probably the best drawing game they've done, to be honest, just because they cut out a lot of the extra fluff.
I need to replay the first one again before I'd say that.
The only other one that I kind of liked was the T-shirt one.
Oh, I forgot about the T-shirt one. Well, the three I remember, the T-shirt one, now that you said it. The first one, which had an owl, I vaguely remember it. I think it was just like...
it was basically a Pictionary takeoff.
Yeah, and then the bidding art one, which I really didn't like.
That one was no good. Yeah. So this one, it's simple, but if you draw funny things, I do think this is another one that unfortunately kind of depends on your group, because if you know a game,
any drawing game depends on your group, because if you have people who don't like drawing or not very good, they're just gonna be like, here's a stick figure.
Well, that's true. But even beyond that, I feel like when you're given a square and being told to draw something, it can be hard to come up with that many funny things. So for me, this is more one that's like used sparingly, because you're just given no prompt. And I don't need to say it, but if you've been on the internet, there's some things that most people are going to start drawing that you're going to get tired of. 9 out of 10,
yeah.
So in that, drawing games, I think that's an inherent issue with them. But as they go, this one was pretty good. So overall, I actually think that this pack was one of the strongest I definitely think it beats 3. The first one is still pretty strong just by nature of the fact that it has the actual You Don't Know Jack game in it, which is really great. But Fibbage is one of their best games, and I really liked the Break the Internet. I thought Bracketeering and the other ones were good enough. There wasn't anything that I thought was really bad. I thought this was one of the strongest packs they've done.
they sort of just blend together for me, so I can't be like, oh, this pack's better than this pack. I mean, Fibbage has always been fun, and that addition of the personalization Fibbage is really great. The internet one was also really fun, and this is one of the better drawing games. I'll definitely agree with you there. I definitely need to come see them all together. Honestly, I wish they didn't do them in packs. I wish it was just like one full selection kind of deal.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice if you could buy them just piece by piece, like $4.99 for a game or something like that.
Not only that, or if you we've updated Fibbage, pay $4 for the updated version or something.
Yeah, but this is the 4th year they've done this, so it seems to be working out for them. But
I mean, I don't blame them.
I can blame them. It's $24.99 if you want. We played it on the Nintendo Switch, and we did, if you're going to buy it on Switch, we did encounter a few connection errors and other weird glitches that I had never experienced with the PC versions. So I don't know if that's something they might patch later or if we were just unlucky, but something to maybe keep in mind. But it is great on the Switch, the fact that you can just take that thing with you, pop it in at a party, and everybody can play with their phones. Very convenient. So, we had some good fun with our Halloween titles. Hopefully you did too. If you played some good stuff, we got your suggestions, but let us know how your actual parties went.
And you can do that by liking and subscribing this video and then commenting.
Yeah.
We'll probably read a bunch of comments if people do comment on our next video.
It's very likely. You can also check us out on Twitter @RollForCrit, where you can mention us somewhere and talk to us. Instagram, Facebook,
in
iTunes.
the pale moonlight.
Yeah, underneath your bed, under the stairs, in the dark woods. And finally, check us out at rollforcrit.com, where we sell board games at great prices, and you can find links to all of our videos and other cool stuff.
We're having a big sale too, so check that out.
Yeah, go buy some games. You deserve it.
But until then, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and this has been Roll for Crit.